Hi, super readers. My name is Captain Comprehension, and I'm here to help you as you become a comprehension detective. I am joined today by a very special guest, Sergeant Science, who will be leading our reading adventure. Welcome to episode 57 of our podcast. This episode, we bring you Grand Canyon by Jason Shin. Today we are going to read Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon is a famous place people like to visit to explore the largest canyon in the United States. As we read, let's discover how the Grand Canyon was formed. And if we look at these pictures, boys and girls, this is the real Grand Canyon that maybe one day you can visit. But before we read the story, let's go over some important vocabulary words that will help us better understand it. Our first vocabulary word is canyon. Canyon is a deep, narrow valley with steep sides. A synonym would be gorge. An antonym would be prey. En español decimos cañón. And if we look at this picture, boys and girls, do we see these steep sides? Yes, that means that this is a canyon. Our next vocabulary word is weathering. Weathering is the process that breaks down large rocks into smaller pieces with wind, water, or temperature changes. A synonym would be wearing away. Y en español decimos desgaste. And if we look at this picture, boys and girls, this is a great way to understand how weathering works. So if we start with this big rock here, there's cracks in it, right? Eventually, water enters these cracks, and then the water freezes and expands them, which makes them bigger. Then, when the cracks deepen, eventually, the big rock is broken down into a smaller rock. So this process is called weathering. Our next vocabulary word is erosion. Erosion is the movement of weathered rocks and soil from one place to another. A synonym would be washing away. An antonym would be building. En español decimos erosión. And in this picture, boys and girls, we're seeing a process of erosion in the sense that these rocks are moving from one place to another, indicated by this arrow. Our next vocabulary word is species. Species is a group of living things that are similar and can reproduce. A synonym would be group, type, or category. En español decimos especies. And if we look at this picture, boys and girls, we see different types of animals, right? Or different types of species that may live in the Grand Canyon. Our next vocabulary word is habitat. Habitat is a natural environment where an animal or a plant lives. A synonym would be environment. Y en español decimos hábitat. And if we look at this picture, there's different types of habitats. So for example, there could be a desert habitat, a rainforest habitat, or even an ocean. Now that we've learned our vocabulary words, it's time to put your knowledge to the test. And I know you're up to the challenge. To participate in this podcast, please scan the QR code on your left-hand side or type in the URL to check your answers. So our first question is, which meaning of species is used in the story? Is it A, layers of rocks, B, groups of living things, C, remains of plants or animals that lived long ago, or D, natural environment where plants and animals live? Don't forget to submit your answer A, B, C, or D. Great job! Now for our next question. Which meaning of habitats is used in the story? A, natural environment where an animal or plant lives. B, the remains or traces of plants and animals that lived long ago. C, a deep narrow valley with steep sides. Or D, the movement of weathered rocks and soil from one place to another. Don't forget to submit your answer A, B, C, or D. Awesome job! Now, the moment we've all been waiting for, it's time for us to read the story and learn more about the Grand Canyon. Rivers carve canyons. When they cut into the earth, canyons grow deeper. As weathering and erosion break apart their walls, canyons grow wider. Over time, rivers wash all of the eroded material away. These processes have been at work for millions of years, relentlessly excavating the mighty gorge known as Grand Canyon by Jason Shin. The Grand Canyon is one of the largest canyons in the world. It is 277 miles long, as much as 18 miles wide, and more than a mile deep. But it's much more than just a big hole in the ground. It's home to an astonishing variety of plants and animals. The canyon is much hotter and drier at the bottom than at the top. Because of this, different groups of plants and animals or ecological communities are found at different elevations in the canyon. The hottest part of the canyon is at the very bottom, a 1,000-foot deep chasm called the Inner Gorge. The Inner Gorge may be the hottest part of the canyon, but there are oases in this desert. Creeks bring life-giving water into the gorge, and a wide variety of species live along their banks, including frogs, dragonflies, mule deer, and the endangered southwestern willow flycatcher. Many of these creatures are permanent residents that rely on running water for survival, while others are visitors drawn here by their thirst. Eventually, every creek in the canyon flows into the largest stream of all, the Colorado River. The Colorado runs the entire length of Grand Canyon, continually washing sediment away and slowly deepening its channel. It's been cutting into the land for around 5 million years. Today, it is cutting into the Vishnu Basement rocks. These rocks are part of the continental basement, the bottommost layer of rock on the continent. The basement rocks are the oldest in the canyon, as much as 1.84 billion years old. The basement rocks are the oldest in the canyon, as much as 1.84 billion years old. Many younger rock layers are stacked on top of them. If you hike out of the canyon, you'll pass younger and younger layers as you climb, as if you're walking up through time. Above the basement layer, you'll reach the Grand Canyon supergroup. Here you may find ripple marks preserved in the stone. Clues like these tell us what this place was like when the rock formed. They are like windows to the past. This is Grand Canyon 1.2 billion years ago, when the only living things on Earth were microbes such as algae and bacteria. Although they were too small to see, these primitive organisms filled the oceans and were some of the earliest life forms on the planet. The mud from the tidal flat eventually transformed into a layer of solid rock, and these ripple marks were preserved in the process. They are now part of the Grand Canyon supergroup. After climbing out of the inner gorge, you'll find yourself on a broad, sun-baked slope. The plants and animals here are well adapted for life with little water. Black-throated sparrows can go for long periods without taking a drink. Many creatures sleep during the heat of the day. Pocket mice forage at night and are preyed on by owls and rattlesnakes who are adapted for hunting in the dark. These animals are living on the rock layer called the Bright Angel Shale, which formed more than 200 million years after the Grand Canyon supergroup. Trilobite fossils in the rocks tell us that this spot once lay beneath the ocean, once lay beneath the sea. This is Grand Canyon 515 million years ago. By this time in Earth's history, many multicellular plants and animals had evolved. Soft-bodied jellyfish floated above clam-like brachiopods and tiny once lay beneath the sea. This is Grand Canyon 515 million years ago. By this time in Earth's history, many multicellular plants and animals had evolved. Soft-bodied jellyfish floated above clam-like brachiopods and tiny hyolites, some of the first creatures on Earth with shells. Trilobites, the first animals known to have eyes, roamed the sea floor. Around them, worm-like creatures burrowed in the sediments that eventually transformed into the Bright Angel Shale. Towering over the Bright Angel Shale is a massive cliff called Red Wall Limestone. The Red Wall has many inaccessible caves that provide nesting spots for one of the rarest birds in the world, the California condor. With a 9-foot wingspan and weighted as much as 23 pounds, the condor is the largest land bird in North America. Condors are vultures, and during the Ice Age they fed on the carcasses of megabeasts like giant ground sloths. Since then, their population has declined due to changes in climate and human activity, and now they are close to extinction. Above the Red Wall Cliff is a slope of red rust rock. The climate here is not as hot and dry as below, and pion pines and Utah junipers are common. Many creatures such as squirrels, chipmunks, and wood rats eat their seeds. These small rodents are preyed on by gopher snakes and coyotes. At the top of the slope is the rock layer called the Hermit Formation. Fossils in the Hermit tell us that long ago this spot was home to huge dragonflies with 8-inch wingspans. This is Grand Canyon 280 million years ago. By this time, life was flourishing on land and trees, birds, fish, amphibians, and reptiles had evolved. The sea had retreated from the region and rivers flowed across the landscape. Seed ferns and conifers grew along their banks, and amphibians left their tracks in the mud that eventually transformed into the Hermit Formation. Above the red slopes of the Hermit are pale 350-foot cliffs. Bighorn sheep easily navigate their narrow ledges with specially adapted hooves. In the fall mating season, males compete for dominance by smashing into each other with their battering ram horns. These cliffs have been carved from the Coconino sandstone. Fossil prints in the rocks tell us that this spot 275 million years ago, an early reptile walked across huge windswept dunes. With little water, life here would have been difficult, but the desert wasn't entirely barren. Among the other species that called it home were scorpions, millipedes, and spiders. As the desert wind whipped across the landscape and sand piled up in thin layers, today those layers are preserved in the Coconino sandstone as thin, angled surfaces called crossbeds. As you approach the rim of the canyon, the climate becomes cooler and more moist. Vegetation on the sloping Toro Reef Formation is more dense than below. Before exiting the canyon, however, there is one more layer to scale, the Kaibab Formation. The Kaibab's limestone cliffs are full of marine fossils that tell us about life here 270 million years ago. When the ocean again covered the land, fossils in the Kaibab Formation tell of a complex ecosystem. The seafloor was home to sea lilies and birozoans, sponges, and corals. Trilobites and brachiopods lived alongside them, while nautiloids and as many as 40 species of shark patrolled the water above them. Many of these creatures, such as coral and brachiopods, had hard shells. When they died, their shells piled up on the seafloor and eventually transformed into the limestone of the Kaibab Formation. If you ascend from the Colorado River to the south rim of Grand Canyon, you will have climbed nearly 5,000 feet and passed through 3 distinct habitats. Above the rim, you'll find one more. The Ponderosa Pine Forest is home to tassel-eared squirrels, deer, and elk. Bobcats, coyotes, and hawks hunt here, as well as the top predators in the canyon, mountain lions. Because of its great size and depth, Grand Canyon has a wide range of climates and habitats, and species that call the canyon home today survive on ancient rocks. Rocks that tell us about life here and long before there was a canyon. It's taken millions of years of weathering and erosion to expose these rocks and shape this breathtaking landscape, and these processes continue to this day, relentlessly excavating the greatest canyon on Earth. What a fascinating story! Now it's time for us to identify the text structure of Grand Canyon. Remember, there's little clues or signal words that can help us identify the text structure. Let's identify some of them that came up in the story. We saw because, due to, wide range of climates and habitats, because of its great size and depth, variety of species, after, eventually, and weathering and erosion. Don't forget to use your text structure bookmark to help guide you. So what is the text structure of the passage? Is it A, comparison, B, cause and effect, C, problem and solution, or D, cause, problem, and solution? Don't forget to submit your answer A, B, C, or D. Now it's time for us to construct our main idea. And remember, when we're constructing our main idea, we're using a sentence stem for the whole selection. So I identified this story as a cause and effect. This is my main idea for the whole selection. The cause is the Grand Canyon's great size and depth. The effect is the Grand Canyon has many habitats. Awesome job! Now it's time for us to answer a multiple choice main idea question. What is the best main idea for the selection? A. Weathering and erosion broke apart the walls of the canyon. As a result, the canyon grew wider. B. Changes in climate and human activity led to the decline of the California condors, which are now close to extinction. C. Because of the Grand Canyon's great size and depth, it has many habitats. Or D. There are different types of rock layers in the Grand Canyon. Don't forget to submit your answer A, B, C, or D. Fantastic! Now it's time for us to build our summary. And remember, boys and girls, we're thinking back to our main idea and then extending it by including supporting details to each part. So that means the cause will have a supporting detail and the effect will have a supporting detail. Here is my summary. The cause is the Grand Canyon's great size and depth due to weathering and erosion. The effect is the Grand Canyon has many habitats such as the Colorado River, rocky slopes, the desert, and the Ponderosa Pine Forest, which many species call home. Now it's time to answer a multiple choice summary question. What is the best summary of the selection? A. Weathering and erosion caused the canyon walls to grow wider until the Grand Canyon was formed. This then led to the formation of the 1,000-foot deep chasm called the Inner Gorge. B. The Grand Canyon has different elevations and rock layers, such as the Inner Gorge, Vishnu Basement Rocks, and the Hermit Formation. C. Millions of years ago, there used to be a sea where Grand Canyon is now. As a result, there are fossils in the Kaibab Formation that tell of a complex ecosystem. Or D. Weathering and erosion created the Grand Canyon's great size and depth. This led to habitats like the Colorado River, rocky slopes, desert, and ponderosa pine forest, which is home to many species. Don't forget to submit your answer A, B, C, or D. Now there's only one thing left we have to do. Let's infer. Remember, when we infer, we get clues from the text, what we already know, and generate our inferences. So what can we infer? Our first question is, the author wrote the story mainly to... Pause and think about this question. Is it A, to entertain the reader with a story of when a girl and her father explored the Grand Canyon? B, to persuade the reader to visit the Grand Canyon? C, to inform the reader how the Grand Canyon was formed and the different habitats it has? Or D, to explain to the reader how the Inner Gorge was formed in the Grand Canyon? Submit your answer A, B, C, or D. Our last question is, what is the most likely reason the author included the Grand Canyon used to be covered by an ocean? Pause and think about this question. Is it A, to share interesting information about the creatures that used to live there? B, to entertain the reader with interesting illustrations of the ocean? C, to inform the reader why there are fossils in the rocks of the Grand Canyon? Or D, to explain why the girl in the story is swimming? Don't forget to submit your answer A, B, C, or D. Great work, detectives! I hope you discovered something new about how the Grand Canyon's great size creates a variety of habitats that can support different species. Until next time, super readers, this is Sergeant Science signing off.